Hey everybody, what is going on? My name is Eric McGrew and I'm here with Elevated Office Podcast and Eric's Tree Service, of course. I'm also bringing you these shows by Weaver Arborist and Gap Arbor Supply. They help me produce these and I am grateful for their support. Soon here, I will be doing some product testing for a few companies that I'll let you guys kind of know what's going on with that. Recently, Seth with Jailbreak sent me out the well, he's got a couple of new versions, I guess, additions or slight revisions to the jailbreak. But the jailbreak that I have is it functions the same way. It's just slightly different in form. And so I've been working with that. And to be honest with you guys, so there's no commitment to jailbreak on my part. We talked about it, and he sent it out for me to demo and try and whatever. Gotta tell you, me and my groundies are really impressed with the jailbreak. One of the big reasons that I'm interested and impressed with the jailbreak is because the jailbreak is way smoother than most porter wraps, and it's true you get the right rope and you get the right porter wrap mixed together, and you learn how to finesse it right. If you've been running a porter wrap long enough, it can feel pretty good. Still, porter wraps have a tendency that if you put just a little too much pressure in your hands on it, it kind of feels jerky. Or if the rope had been hockled and it got pulled through and the fabric is twisted just a little bit, it can feel kind of jerky. And if it got a little wet, as that wet section comes around the bollard, it can feel a little bit jerky. I gotta say the jailbreak is way smoother in general, and there's two ways to determine how I'm feeling about the jailbreak as far as smoothness goes. I'm not running the jailbreak. My guy on the ground is, or my guys on the ground are, and so one way is how it feels on the ground. Well, there's three ways in. One way is how it feels on the ground, and they say it's way smoother than the porter wrap. Second way is watching them, just how much they have to like manage it with their hands. So that's another way. And then third off is like when I'm in a big tree on smaller diameter material, how it reacts and how it affects my feeling in the tree. So like porter wraps at times, if you've ever felt that little bit of a jerk or jar, it's not that it's like shaking you out of the tree. That's not what I'm talking about. But you can feel it kind of vibrate through the tree as it is moving, and it's kind of like not as smooth. I don't feel that with the jailbreak at all. Like once it starts to run, they can control it easily. It feels really smooth. Seems to be robust, so I'm not really worried about that. There are a couple of things that I'm trying to test a little bit more and figure out. For instance, if you over wrap, or well, you don't really wrap, but if you over install the rope around too many of the bollards, I'm trying to figure out how you can get those off under load to make it less. I do know that you can like push the rope through the pigtail and kind of force feed the rope up so that it comes down. That's kind of slow. So it kind of requires you to kind of have an idea on what you're doing as far as like pretty good idea of what the weight is and how much that device is going to require with that rope that you're running, because like all devices, depending on the rope that you're running, the device will run that rope differently. So like Samson Blue is going to run different than Arborplex and all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, there's a bunch of ropes out there, so we're not going to go into all the names, but I know for a fact that those two run very differently. Scandiri, which is not technically a rigging rope, but I use it for light stuff because it's a very old climb line that I burnt in an emergency job using it as a rigging rope. It runs differently, and by burnt, I mean the sheathing got friction burnt on the natural crotch we were using. So with all of that being said, the cons, quote unquote, of the jailbreak are minimal, super minimal, and it's still way better than any of the porta wraps that I've used. Now, in all fairness, the Jailbreak is not a cheap device. You're talking about a device that's about $500 for what it is. And clearly a porta wrap, a large porta wrap's usually only $150. So is it worth the difference in price? To me, yes. I would definitely say it is. Bunch of factors here that kind of make me feel that way. One, I threw a brand new guy on the Jailbreak last week. So I guess that was maybe Thursday or Wednesday. Threw a guy on the Jailbreak. He had never even worked in the tree industry, had no idea of ropes and porta wraps or friction devices or whatever. And I had my guy down there who does the friction devices for me usually and runs the ropes. And he was watching him, and we took like a couple of big chunks. One was probably 450 pounds and one was almost 700 pounds. And they were taken on like really noodly tall, like 80-foot stems of cottonwood that were probably 18 inches in diameter. So at the top, so it whipped pretty good. That was not what I was in. I was next to it, and he was able to, like, his first two tries, he was able to keep the dynamic force to a minimal. Would I have been whipped a little bit had I been in it? Yeah, I would have a little bit. Mind you, this is his first time ever running ropes, with some pretty large chunks of wood, and they swung, let's see, from where I cut them to where center of the rigging spar was. It's probably an 8-foot swing, so not huge, but enough to, if you have issues, it causes problems. And it was pretty, I was pretty impressed for it to be his first time ever. I know guys who have been running ropes on porta wraps that it would have been about that jittery and shake about that much with good handling of a porta wrap. You don't have to worry about your ropes crossing over like you do on a porta wrap and stuff. So this isn't a sales pitch to you guys. I'm just letting you know why I would pay for the Jailbreak so far with my experiences. I've been using it for about 2 weeks, a week and a half, something like that. You can run 2 ropes in it, which is pretty cool. It's much lighter because it's aluminum. It's much, much lighter than like most of the porta wraps are. Really easy to install. The only thing you have to kind of get used to with it is you can't unwrap halfway through. Like if you had too many wraps on a porta wrap, you fling a couple off. And as far as I can tell, I haven't figured out how to like reduce bollard friction, because once the weight's on it, it's pressed against the bollards that it's zigzagging through. So that's one thing. They say, and I haven't had any problems with it, but they say they've tested it, and if you have it zigzagged through accordingly and you lock it off by running it, you take the rope coming out of the bottom pigtail and wrap it around the bottom bollard, and then wrap it around the pigtail again, and then like a half hitch on a bite, it's locked off and it holds. I'm not saying that's not true. I've tried it a couple times and it seemed to work. That is one of my concerns, is like how much weight will that pigtail hold? Like, so let's say one of the common reasons you might need to lock off is maybe you didn't wrap hard enough. You didn't put enough wraps on there. If that's the case, will that pigtail hold? It's spring still. It's pretty beefy. I think it will. Got to do some more research on that. I'm not saying it won't. Don't misunderstand. I'm giving you first impressions of this thing, and overall, they're overwhelmingly good. It doesn't hockle your rope, which is a big deal. So getting your rope behind you so that you can run it is awesome. You can run 2 ropes in the Jailbreak as well. They run parallel up through the system. So you can actually have one guy with 2 hit both hands running, if you set it right. He can run the V-rig or the span rig or the tag line and the lowering line together. And they don't have to run the same course. So you can have like your lowering rope run through more bollards and your tag line run through less. So everything about it so far says that it's worth the money. I'd like to give it a little bit more go, and I'm talking to Seth a little bit more about it. I'm not trying to create doubts in it. It's a new product though, right? So I just, these are my first impressions. So far, I'm seriously impressed. But longevity and long term. I know this one device has been used for a while. No significant grooves from the ropes running on it. I don't know who else has used it and how they've used it. So I'm not sure like how much big weight has been dropped on it. I'm sure quite a bit though, because people tend to try to break stuff and whatnot. But it's been pretty good. I'm pretty stoked on that. It would also be one thing I'm not sure about. I think from the structure and what I've seen, it would be reasonable enough to use in the tree. The only thing that makes me kind of curious about using it in the tree, which I want to do, is the pigtail, because you have a pigtail that the rope has to go in at a 90-degree angle to the device, and then you have a pigtail coming out the top to make sure it all stays in alignment. Kind of like the pigtails on the GRCS, those little pigtails that your rope has to go in when you're doing lowering. So we'll see. In the tree, that might be a little bit more complex. I don't know yet. I have to test it some more. So that's kind of where we stand on it at the moment. The fact that it's aluminum means that it handles outdoor weather really well, and it is just pretty light, and that's a real nice plus. You could easily like clip it to your tree gear bag, your gear bag, and then like have it hanging off the side of the carabiner or something and carry it, and it not be a big deal. It does have an accessory hole at the top that you can put like a carabiner with extra pulleys to make like 3-to-1s or 5-to-1s or whatever with. So there's a lot of, they've thought it out pretty well, and now they're coming out with new colors, which is just, it's cool and that kind of stuff. So go check out, I think it's jailbreak.net or jailbreakarborist.net or something like that. I don't have it in front of me, and I haven't really looked at their website much. I've looked at it a few times, but so go check that out. They're really, really cool. I should be getting some product in from Pelican Rope just to try out their ropes. We're gonna do a number of tests. As far as I understand, I'm getting some static and some 16 strand, some 24 strand, and I'm also getting, let's see, what else am I getting? I think I'm getting some rigging ropes, and they have a specific static rope that is supposed to be approved by Ronin, because I am using my Ronin. I use it a lot now. That's probably why I'm gaining weight, which I've got to get rid of, but I do like having the Ronin. It saves my legs and stuff getting in like tall trees. If the tree's like 60 foot or taller, I'll consider using it. It depends on the tree. Over 60 foot, definitely, just for, ease and speed. Less than that, yeah, it depends on what I'm doing. If I have to go all the way to the top to get one thing, maybe. If I am climbing and removing the tree or pruning like from the bottom up, then, your first branches are only 20, 30 foot off the ground, so I'm probably not going to use it. I do like the Ronin. I think it's a good product. The couple of things about it are it's not as particular as it once was. That's for sure. It is slightly particular though. And so you've got to kind of keep that in mind. So that's something you just have to get used to doing it. I actually have a Cam 3 Max rope that I use for it, and that rope is 100% dedicated to the Ronin, and the reason for that is because if the ropes get cuts or tufts in them, even if they're not to the point of retiring the rope, it can become complex going through the Ronin, and the Ronin can get fibers torn off of it if it's got a tuft. So I try to prevent anything like that from happening. As soon as I get in the tree with the Ronin, I have them disconnect the Ronin line and take it out of the tree, and I have another rope in the tree that I bring up with me, or that is with me, that I put in there, and I make that work. So I like the Ronin a lot. It saves me a lot of fatigue and makes climbing just way more efficient on my side, as far as like clear thinking, because I'm not as tired and stuff, especially when I have to climb like multiple 100-foot trees in a day, or I have to climb the same tree multiple times. There's some real simple ideas for setup on the Ronin. I'll go over those with you in another video, and we'll talk about my experience with the Ronin and what you might want to know and if it's worth it or not, and pros and cons of it and that kind of stuff. But so far, I'm enjoying the Ronin. I've been using it now for about a year, and I've probably got 75 climbs on it. So significant to kind of get a feel for it. And yeah, it's a good device. Is it the best out there? I see things that for the tree industry could be bettered, and I'm actually talking to Ronin because that's what I do. Will any of them come to fruition? I don't know. The tree industry for Ronin is really not their big industry. Military application, search and rescue, high rise, like work at heights maintenance and that kind of stuff is more of their bread and butter. And to be fair, the company's not huge. I think there's like 5 employees in California that I know of. There may be more, I don't know. But as far as I know, it's fairly small. But customer service is really good. I am really stoked on their customer service. I bought one, the last one that I bought it has reverse on it, but it doesn't have like remote reverse installed. Somebody told me all of them come with that now. I don't know if that's true. You'd have to find out from them directly. All of the devices do have reverse on them now, which is where you pull the hand lever down for the brake, the repel, and you hit the trigger at the same time, and it goes into reverse. It can be finicky. Like if you don't have that handbrake all the way against, like it stop at the bottom and do it, it won't go in reverse. And that gets a little bit finicky when you're in the tree and it's kind of like moving around and you're in tight spaces and stuff. Overall, the device is a bit heavy, to be fair. Like getting it off my saddle is the hardest part when I'm in the tree. And I think I have some video of that, so I'll put that so that you guys can kind of see. And like I said, we'll go over this a bit more in another episode. Also, I have been working on the Z133 segment that's coming up next, which is section 3. I've had a bunch of people ask me about when that one's coming out. I apologize, it hasn't come out yet. The thing is, section 3 is quite long. I'm trying to figure out where to stop each section, and I have to go over each section pretty well, because even though I'm not trying to interpret it for you, I'm just literally reading it so that you can kind of know what's in there if you haven't seen the book or if you don't like reading or whatever. There's so much to section 3 and then section 4 that I need to make sure that I go over it thoroughly, and I don't have to take a million takes to get it to you, because if I don't, it's incoherent, it's not good quality. And I'm not a horrible reader by any means, but I don't like reading a whole lot, which is something why, all the visual and podcast media came about from me. So it's just something that I have to work on. I have to just take the time and do it. So that is, that's something that I think that you guys will be getting here early in January, but just so you know, it is coming. I've had a lot of people ask about that. Another thing is, if you haven't, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have more stuff coming this year. I'm really working on doing some things to promote that a little bit more. And I would like your help just by, all you gotta do is click that subscribe button, and if you hit that bell, then you get all the notifications. I'm super stoked on the progress with the podcast. When I wasn't posting regularly, I think we were at 500 and something, 600 something downloads per month, all the way down to like 350. Since I've started posting a few weeks ago, we're already back up to like 1,400 downloads a month. In a 30-day period. It's a rolling 30-day period. So like it changes each day. It's kind of weird. It's kind of hard to figure out, because like right now it's reading the 26th of November to the 26th of December, right? I mean, that's how this works. So each day slightly makes a difference, but totally stoked on that. We're growing every week. I do have ads included in those now because it helps pay for the podcast hosting, and that's just the help that I need with everything that I've got my feet into. New update and something coming out, that you guys I think should know about is that I have been hired as a contract consultant to Weaver. That starts officially. I've been doing consulting for a long time. I've been hired, I guess, as a consultant for a while now, probably a year and a half or so. But the new position is even more intensive. And I will start that officially as of January 3rd, even though I've already got bunches of stuff in the works, and it encompasses a whole bunch of stuff with Weaver that's interesting to me. I'm super stoked about it. I've spoken to the C-suite or the corporate suite, and I've expressed some of my concerns, and we've talked about things, and they are on board. And so I'm looking forward to it. It looks like I might be able to have some impact in a good way there to kind of help adjust some things and guide some things and get new product out and expand their product line, hopefully, is the idea. So we're going to be working with that. You guys will kind of be hearing about that as we go, new stuff that's coming out. We are working on a saddle that has been tested for its safety ratings and to pass inspections. I'm going to get one of those here in a short future. They have to make, there's none made yet other than the sample ones. And so they have to make one that's in my size, which unfortunately now I'm a large once again. I just went to the doctor, 265 pounds. I cannot believe it. I mean, I know I'm a big guy. I kind of did know that I was that weight, but man, this year with the forestry work and everything, it's taken its toll on my schedule and routine. So I am actually working on that as well, because as we all know, like, health is just something we have to deal with, and we have to be fit and things. I don't have the drive to compete like in tree climbing competitions and stuff. I'm just not that guy. I have the drive to innovate and to scientifically study things, and I'm trying to figure out how I can build a drop tower in my backyard pretty soon, hopefully, to be testing a lot of stuff. But the concept of my drop tower is a little bit unique. I find that a lot of companies, they develop and they use commercial drop towers, which are very cool. They do a lot for the industry, and I don't mean to minimize what they do or say that they're inefficient. I just think they could be slightly more efficient. And so my drop tower has very specific designs in it that I'm not really going to go over in any time soon until I get it done, but I'm looking for that. Friend of mine who used to work for me or with me, really, Zephyr, he left me a Rock Exotica Enforcer, and I've got to, since we moved, I can't find it. I've got to find it. It has limited drop capabilities and pull capabilities, but there are some seriously cool tests that I want to do here soon. And so we'll be, if I can find that thing, we'll be doing those soon. If not, I'll have to see if I can get my hands on a different one. If any of you guys have an Enforcer that you would let me borrow, or if you want to donate to the podcast and Elevated Office and Eric Tree Service and and to the betterment of the industry, really, it would be super awesome. Let me know, and we can work it out. I really, there's another one that I've been looking at. If you haven't, so this is not tree related at all. If you haven't seen a channel on YouTube called How Not To, so that's HOWNOT and then the number 2, right? How Not To. Go check it out. It's pretty impressive what they're doing, and the guys are pretty funny to watch, and they're doing lots of pool tests. So my goal is to mimic. I had the idea before I found their channel. This is not a unique idea. My goal, though, is to build a system similar to what they have, a drop tower and a pool table, so that I can break stuff in different orientations and different scenarios that we might find it in and try to figure out, versus a straight pull test like what is done in the labs most of the time. I want to pull things in more organic configurations to the tree world. And most things aren't done that way because they're not really building most devices for Arborist. There are design, I mean, so even if a design was developed for Arborist in particular, the reality of it is that they're almost all tested the same way as like non-Arborist equipment would be tested. It's a very straightforward, a very refined and, good medium, I guess you could say, of testing. So once again, I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying I'm more curious, like the way that we do things, how that affects the way that things react versus just it being in a hydraulic pull ram that pulls stuff apart at its like ideal axis, right? Because that's how things are typically tested. Like a D carabiner, it's pulled on its main axis, and then they pull it laterally and see what the side axis rate is and what a gate axis or whatever is. And that's all fine and good, but I want to actually like do it differently than that. I want to put it in slings and things and see how they work. So yeah, that's really cool. Another thing that we're going to talk about here very soon. I was planning on doing it today, but actually I've talked about so much other stuff I don't really have the time I wanted to. But I want to talk about knots. Not because you guys don't know knots, most of you do. So people do ask me though, especially newer guys, like inexperienced guys, beginner climbers or intermediate guys that are, like expanding their realm of tree work and experience. They ask me, what knot should I know? Well, while it's not 100% comprehensive, Tree Climber's Guide to the Canopy is a great place to start. There are multiple knots in there that I really think you should know. They have some Prusik knots and things like that as well, which, when people talk about knots, sorry for my hair, it's just not laying down. They are, even though some of them are kind of outdated, none of it's so outdated you shouldn't at least know some of it. Because like even old school knots, Blake's hitches and taut lines and all that stuff, they're super handy in an emergency, especially if you're carrying like a split tail on you, or if you just have a knife and can cut off a hank of your rope to get down if something falls on you or whatever. Or if you just can swap over to the tail of your rope and run a Blake's hitch, and a moving rope system. So that kind of stuff is important. When it comes to Prusiks and things, it's very dependent on person and feel and whatever. I mean, there's a million Prusiks out there. A lot of it's going to be your combination of hitch cord and climbing rope. If you haven't, go check out my episode. It was a few episodes previous to this one. Tips for pairing hitch cord and climbing rope, gives you some concepts of what's going on there. And then you can, it just varies a little bit, right? So and then there's also just basic safety, life safety devices that aren't specifically going to release you and let you down a line, but they will hold you, and those are good to know as well. So all of that is really important. So the other thing that I get asked though, or what people ask me more specifically, I guess I should say, is what kind of knots do I typically use and which should they know for whatever. This is very dependent on who you are and what your preference is. A lot of it's going to be how comfortable you feel tying certain knots or not tying knots, how easy they are for you to tie in the tree, what you can remember, that kind of stuff. So probably the main go-to knot that I use for, I would say it's probably like a good 70% of everything I do is, of course, the bowline or the bowline on a bite or the running bowline. All of them are the same knot, essentially, just slightly different circumstances that create the difference. Like, for instance, a bowline on a bite is a bowline, just with two legs of rope made in a configuration of a bite that you create. A running bowline is a bowline just around a standing leg of line that lets it run like a noose would around something, or a cincher so it chokes. Those I use like most of the time. So for me, I use those just really quickly, rigging a lot to tie off pieces that are going to get rigged. I use them for basil anchors at the bottom of the tree. I use them for hauling up gear. Sometimes I'll throw one in the end of a line or the middle of a line and send it down and they hook it on or whatever. I use them for bowling on the bites. I'll use for like a trucker's hitch because I like it better than the twisted version that I used to use. And biggest factor for me is if I'm in doubt and I'm creating something like I need a knot that won't cinch on me for some reason. I use bowlines a lot because I trust that they'll be able to handle the load and still be untieable. So there's that. Then, and just so you know, I have broken 6 or 7 rigging lines that were, like Arborplex, Samson Blue, I forgot the other one that I broke, pulling trees over, and the bowline didn't break, but the rope snapped. So, and then I could still untie them. So they're definitely a rope that I trust for like having heavy loads on that I know they won't cinch and get caught. Other than that, some things, I guess they're knots. I don't really consider them a knot, but like a clove hitch, I use a lot. The munter I use a lot too for repelling short distances if I don't have the device I want or if I'm using the tail of a rope. Clove hitch I use a lot for choking things off, like a midline attachment point for pulleys or whatever. So I use that a lot. I do use a sheet bend we use a lot for pulling ropes up to each other. Barrel knots you're going to use a lot for like terminating things. They're a stopper. That's my go-to stopper knot on my lanyards and of course on my rope bridges. I think that's the standard that most people use, and that's what most companies are creating is the barrel knot or the double overhand fisherman's knot, I think some people call it, or something like that. I actually think the fisherman's knot and the barrel knot are two different ones, but they're similar, and some people call them, they kind of intermingle that situation. So I use those. Slip knot, a basic slip knot is a big deal to use for like if I have rigging line and I need slack and I pull a whole bunch of slack through, but it's going to run back through the pulley or the ring because of the way the rope on the other side, I do that. And then of course alpine butterflies are quite handy. I use those quite a bit. The one thing to know about alpine butterflies in the like cons area is that if they are loaded too hard, it becomes a knife knot. So the great thing about alpine butterflies that everybody uses them for is that they're midline attachable, and that's awesome. So you can tie it anywhere in your rope. It's really quick to tie. It's really easy, super secure. Problem is that if you tie it in the middle of a 200-foot rope and you overload it somehow, then you may have to cut your rope essentially in half because it can become a knife knot. So that's not great. So you have to know when and how to use it, which is why we're going to go over some of these knots and how I use them and when I use them. But the other great thing about an alpine butterfly is it is 3-way. You can pull both legs. You can use both legs and the knot and it be okay. And you can also pull the loop of the knot in any direction and it not come untied. Which you can't do with certain other knots. You definitely can't like put weight on the tail of a bowline and it be 100% secure and that kind of stuff. There are debates about things and people kind of find ways to finagle stuff. Not really suggested. Like I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, I just use a slip knot and put a carabiner through it and it won't let the loop run through. And it's like, yeah, but There have been some things that said that under certain applications, the knot could loosen up and carabiners could come through or whatever. I mean, you can't really, solve all the problems in the world, but under normal circumstances, like a slip knot's not recommended for certain things, and we'll talk about that. Even though I use the slip knot quite a bit, and it is very handy. And then overhands, you use overhands a lot just for little reasons, like if I don't have a retrieval ball and I want to retrieve a friction device, an adjustable friction saver or a friction saver, I can throw an overhand in there and get it through the big ring and it gets stuck on the small ring and pull it. Now, I will say that if the friction saver is stuck on really rough bark or in a tight crotch and you pull on it hard enough, your overhand could shrink enough that it may possibly come through the small ring, depending on the diameter of your rope and various things like that. So yeah, these are all just a real quick brief brush over of these knots. In future episodes, especially on YouTube, I'll be going over knots that I use and how I use them and why I use them and why I prefer them, and then what to kind of think about with them. I'm not expert, so don't misunderstand. These have served me well though, and I like them. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm not encouraging or suggesting you use them. I'm suggesting that you do more research, figure out if it's something you feel comfortable with, and see how they potentially could be used, and figure out if that's what you want to do with them. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on right now. We've got a lot of stuff going on. I'm recording with it right now, just got my new iPhone 14 Pro Max, and the reason I got that is for the camera. Incredible camera, 48 megapixel on the main. That is pretty impressive to me. The good thing about that is that I will be able to also use some lenses on it. Like I got a Moment 58 millimeter lens that's coming on and that I can put on it to do a little bit of zoom stuff. I've also got an anamorphic for wide view. Also makes it look just a little nicer, that I'm going to be able to use with it. I got the new app. Well, not new. It's new to me because I haven't had it before, but I just got Beast Cam app for shooting with the anamorphic lens, which is going to be super rad. And this is all going to be part of what I'm doing, but also part of what I'm doing for Weaver. And yeah, we're gonna see what happens. I'm super stoked about the potentials. Got a lot of climbing stuff coming up, which is awesome. Got a lot of testing to do, which is pretty cool too. That's my favorite thing. If I could climb trees right now in my life, if I could get out of climbing trees commercially and just do testing and remove a tree a month or something like that and make enough money, that's totally what I would do. The science side of this is way more interesting to me these days than just going and doing a job. Like going and doing a job, you're pressured for money, you just got to go get it done. You don't get to enjoy the experience quite as much. But climbing trees and testing stuff to me is like way more intimate with the tree, way more intimate with the gear. It's just fun. And unfortunately, I don't have the time on the weekends that I would like to. So I'm working on making all that happen with around Eric's tree service and see how that works. And then, of course, with the help of Weaver and Gap Arborist Supply, that's been something fun to be able to work with. So that's kind of what we've got going on. Hope you guys enjoy everything that I'm putting out. Thanks for listening to the podcast. There is a donate button there. If you would like to just buy me a coffee, which I drink a lot of coffee, so that would help. And that's what keeps me going through all these episodes. Just hit that donate button in the show notes of the podcast, and you can just donate a few dollars, $1 if you want, whatever. Anything helps, and I appreciate it very much, but no pressure. Just listening is a huge help as well. So thank you all. I will see you in the next one, and be safe out there climbing.